Hello, and welcome to the Healthy Solutions for All YouTube channel. Today's episode, we'll be discussing Lyme 101, the basis of Lyme disease, where it came from, originated, symptoms, cycles, stages. Also be talking about a few alternative remedies that you may or may not be aware of. We're also going to be talking about my personal story. So let's dive in. So my story starts about 1999. My sister and I, within 1 year of each other, started having mysterious illness symptoms. Brain fog, fatigue, dizziness, allergies, being allergic to things we weren't previously allergic to, environmental allergies, heart palpitations, anxiety, lightheadedness, dizziness, the list goes on. And we are previously very healthy individuals with just, the common colds and flus and things like that. So for us, this was a total, it seemed like one day we were fine, the next day we had this mysterious illness going on. We both went to about 30 plus doctors, at MRIs, CAT scans, blood work, and they could not come up with anything conclusive. They were well-meaning, most of them, but they had no solutions or answers. And even one of the doctors said, well, maybe they just need to go on a date. That it's pretty ridiculous, but back in the 90s, Lyme disease wasn't really well known. So anyways, about a year into being homebound with this mysterious illness, we went to a healing service, and we went in on wheelchairs that night and walked out on our own. It was the start of a miracle of our healing journey. We were also introduced to a naturopath physician that night as well. Some people knew him and gave us his number, and we ended up seeing him, and he helped us on our journey to health. But it was still, we still had a lot of issues, and so we ended up going from different doctors and naturopaths and alternative therapies, and we saw some improvement here and there, but we never totally got relief. 5 years into it, we were introduced to another naturopath, and he did something called live blood cell analysis, which basically he examined a drop of blood under his microscope. I could see at the cell level kind of what was going on. And since at this time I was studying to become a naturopath, he shared with me that he believed we had Lyme disease because he could actually see the spirochetes in our blood, and he showed me that. So this was the first time I really knew about Lyme and that Lyme could be an issue. And so it just really started a journey for me personally and my sister and my family to kind of figure out what to do for ourselves. From there, we completed our studies. I got my degree as a naturopathic doctor, and my sister got her degree as a nutritionist, certified nutritional consultant. And our goal was to help ourselves and also help other people on their journey to health. And so that's what I'm here today. I'm here to help you guys just understand a little bit about Lyme disease, and I mentioned its stages and cycles and symptoms and things you can do that you may not be aware of. And this channel basically is going to have a lot of different health topics I'm going to be covering, from things I've learned personally and from clients and things I've researched and studied. And so I just highly recommend that you subscribe to the channel and stay updated on these valuable tools that you can use for your health. Okay, so let's get started. So what is Lyme disease? Well, the definition of Lyme is that it's an infectious disease caused by the bacteria Borrelia burgdorferi. And the primary cause of Lyme transmission is from infected ticks. Now, the CDC says there's about 30,000 cases of Lyme reported each year in the U.S., but actually, I believe that number is actually higher than that, probably about 10 times that amount, because there's been surveys done that show that the lab test ordered for Lyme disease actually shows that number to be about 300,000 people. So that's 300,000 people per year in the U.S. alone that are actually getting tested for Lyme, and a lot of those tests are coming back positive as well. So that's a very high number, and that's just people that maybe think this could be a possibility of what is going on with them, and so that number could even be higher than that, could even be like 500,000 people. For myself personally, I had no idea I had Lyme disease, and so that could have been one of those people that uh, didn't know I had Lyme, and it was misdiagnosed for many years. And that's why a lot of people fall into that category where they have no idea what's going on. They have all these weird symptoms and they're not getting any help. So, how is Lyme transmitted? Well, the common vector we discussed earlier is through ticks. Now, it can also be transmitted too through mosquitoes, biting flies, lice, be sexually transmitted. It be passed from the mom to the baby if she's infected. It can be passed through the birth canal. Also, breast milk can be contained as well if the mom's affected. Mosquitoes can carry that disease process to even spiders. So there's more than one way to be infected with Lyme disease, although ticks tend to be the primary carrier. Now, where did Lyme disease originate? Well, Lyme was named after the village of Lyme, Connecticut, where a number of cases were identified in 1975. But it's been reported as early as 1800s in Europe. The first condition associated with Lyme disease was actually in 1883, discovered by Alfred Bourgeois, who was a German physician. And then in the 1980s, William Burgdorfer, a PhD, was investigating outbreaks of Rocky Mountain spotted fever. He was working with other researchers to determine the cause of Lyme, where it was coming from. And in one of the batches of ticks, he noticed an embryonic form parasite in the body fluid of 2 ticks, and upon closer inspection, he found spirochetes. So later, the spirochetes would be named Borrelia burgdorferi after his findings, which were found to be the causative agent of Lyme disease. The Lyme has 3 stages: primary, secondary, and tertiary. The first stage is the familiar bullseye rash, otherwise known as the ephraim migrans, which may appear at the site of the infection. The rash could start from a couple days or may not appear for several months. About 1/3 of those who are bitten actually, however, the rash is so light they may not notice it, or they might not have any rash appear at all. And that's what happened to me. I had no rash, no symptoms. Okay. The rash can also have different kinds of coloring, from like a red-purple to bruise-like appearance, or it can be different shapes, from like a ring, a triangle, an oval, or even a long ragged line. So if it's not the typical textbook bullseye rash, just be aware that can have many different variations and looks to it. The rash can also last from 1 week to several months, and it will usually go away on its own, but it does not mean that the infection is still not in your body just because the rash goes away. Rash or no rash, it's best to get checked out, especially if you've been around in outside, hiking, camping in a tent, even walking around gardening, and you get some kind of mysterious rash or flu-like symptoms. All of a sudden, you might want to get checked out and make sure you haven't been bitten by a tick. This infection can also cross the blood-brain barrier in a few days, so you want to make sure you get after it right away. And I find with people that even if they are infected and they haven't treated even a year, as long as they get after that right away, even if it's been even a year, for the most part, these people are not going to have chronic issues. When you start getting into years and years and years, then you start having a lot of issues because this type of disease process starts reproducing and replicating, and it gets harder and harder to get rid of. So what are the primary symptoms of Lyme disease? First, you have your basic flu-like symptoms, and that's why a lot of people get confused, because this disease process, known as a great mimicker, can mimic a lot of things. It can mimic the flu initially. In secondary Lyme disease, the spirochete bacteria gains a foothold in the body, and this is when it can travel into lymphatic and circulatory systems, and where the CNS is also infected. Symptoms can be intermittent and can disappear for days or weeks or months. About 8% of those people affected at this disease process can develop cardiac symptoms. About 10% have neurological involvement. I had both of those. In the third stage, hereditary, this is when symptoms occur months to years after the initial infection, okay? Many of the organs of the body are affected, can result in degeneration and damage, and you can see all the symptoms on the slide. It can be a vast array of symptoms, anything from the stage 1, 2, and also you have the immune issues. You have the rheumatoid arthritis. About 8% of people at this stage have the rheumatoid arthritic symptoms. Depression, memory loss, anxiety are very common, and symptoms can come and go. People can go into remission for months to years at a time. Now I'll explain more why I believe this happens too as well, but this is kind of the third stage. Now Lyme has different life cycles just like any bacteria does. And the 3 cycles it has is spirochetal, cell wall division, and cyst form. In a spirochete stage, this is the initial infection stage where someone is initially infected. And each cycle can occur at any stage of Lyme. And it does this so it can proliferate and survive in the body. It wants to survive and it wants to hide itself. The spiral shape that you see, that little spirochete shape, actually allows that bacteria to drill into the bone and muscle tissues of the body, and this is why I believe people get arthritic conditions, and why it's very difficult for antibiotics and even herbs to get after this disease process, as they can hide in the parts of the body that the blood does not go to, okay, like the muscle and bone and fat. The cyst stage, this is when you have more autoimmune issues come into play in the cycle, and it's very hard for antibiotics to reach it at this particular cycle. It kind of clumps them together in these dense colonies, and the inner layers are basically unreachable by antibiotics and by the immune system. MS, muscle disorders, chronic fatigue can appear at this type of cycle, and it's very difficult to treat. The cyst form of this bacteria is not mobile, doesn't cause any symptoms. It's a silent but deadly stage, okay? This thing can survive antibiotics, starvation, pH changes, and most adverse conditions, and then converts back into spirochete cycle when conditions are favorable. This particular cycle is responsible for relapsing and remitting Lyme, and it can be persistent and asymptomatic for up to 30 years. So this is why I was explaining earlier, right, why people can have remission or even not have Lyme symptoms for years and then get it again. Or they can have no Lyme symptoms, have been bitten by a tick 30 years in the past, something happened to them like a trauma or infection or something in their life that has brought their immune system down, and boom, this thing pops up. Kind of like a shingles, you know, you get the shingles virus and it goes away, and then years and years and years and years later, this thing comes out of hiding, it goes out dormant into active stage. So that's why people can get Lyme that don't even remember being bitten by a tick, and it can be because it's been in their system for a very long time, just waiting to kind of come out when conditions are favorable. Now let's talk about testing. There's a lot of different types of testing available, but accurate test results are not always guaranteed, and in my opinion don't always guarantee whether someone has Lyme or not. False negatives are common, and positive results do not always confirm a Lyme diagnosis, so it's best to get preliminary signs and symptoms with a case history along with testing to make an accurate diagnosis. Now I've had people who have gone and gotten testing upwards of 7 times before they actually had a positive result that they were having Lyme disease in their body. And another reason for this too is that once you get Lyme, you can have antibodies show up. Some people believe that you're always going to have those antibodies no matter what, even if you don't have any symptoms. And some other people believe that as you are treated, that positive result will turn into a negative test result. You know, I'm not exactly sure where I stand on that right now. I'm hoping that people can change that positive result into a negative result. I know I personally, when I was tested for Lyme, a very long time ago. It showed I had antibodies, but the people that tried to test me basically said I didn't have it, just showed that I had a past exposure in the past. So, I don't know exactly where I believe in that, but I think that, like I mentioned before, you're going to want a case history along with your symptoms and the blood result to get a more accurate diagnosis of what's going on. The two labs that we recommend are IGeneX and Spirostat, as they tend to be the most accurate labs that we found available. Now, we talked about those things today, and we'll talk about co-infections probably in the next video. But I want to also address a couple of natural things that you can do for Lyme. Cemento is one of those things that I usually suggest to people. It's been around for a while. Nutramex has been around since the 90s, and they're a very science-based supplement company. Cemento itself is actually a rare chemotype of the plant known as cat's claw. And what it has in it, it doesn't have the TOAs. The TOAs are tetracyclic oxidoyl alkaloids, but it does have POAs. Now, the TOAs actually inhibit the positive effect of the POAs, which are pentacyclic oxidoyl alkaloids, and the POAs are what's responsible for helping to modulate the immune system. So when I mean modulate, I mean if your immune system is really high and overactive, it brings it down to a normal stage. If it's really low, it brings it up to a more normal reaction. So it helps to modulate the immune system. Also, Cemento is great as a natural antibacterial against Lyme and different co-infections like Bartonella. And it's also great, been known to be very helpful in different gut disorders. I've used this with some success with people with Crohn's and IBS, and alternating constipation and diarrhea and those type of things. So that is a very good thing to use it for as well. Banderol is something I also use too with Lyme, and it's an extract from the bark of the Otoba parviflora tree found in South America. It's got antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal, and antiprotozoal properties, and it's very effective against Borrelia and Bartonella. Both of those actually combined together. They've done studies on the Cemento and Banderol combinations, and they found them to both be very effective in helping the body to eliminate Lyme disease. The study done in July 2010 by Eva Sape actually shows that the combination of Cemento and Banderol was more effective than the common antibiotic known as doxycycline. So they found that the study showed that the Cemento and Banderol combination helped eliminate the forms of Lyme, the round body shaped forms, the spirochetal form, and the cyst form. But doxycycline actually increased the round body forms. So you can look that up, your study for yourself. It's a Townsend letter, July 2010, and Eva Sape and some other researchers did this study, and it's a very interesting read. But it just shows to me that there's other natural things that you can do as well as the typical antibiotics, maybe in combination together or separately, that can help your body to recover. And the last thing I want to talk to you about today is silver. And silver has been around for thousands of years and was used in the pre-refrigeration days to actually help preserve milk. They would put a silver dollar in a carton of milk to help protect against microorganisms. Also used to help disinfect water, and physicians used it quite a lot before antibiotics came around. So the kind of silver that I actually like is ACS silver by Results RNA. It's got a lot of studies behind it and testing, and it's works really well against viruses, bacteria, and against Lyme disease. I'm by no means an expert on silver, but I would highly recommend getting this particular brand or Sovereign Silver, as those two brands have a lot of studies behind them, and they tend to be very trustworthy brands to use. One more thing I want to talk about very briefly is on-demand biofeedback. Now, this has been around for about 15-20 years now. I personally use this and use it with clients, treat clients at my home office with this machine, And it's basically PEMF technology with sound waves, sound frequencies. This helps the body to um, adapt to issues dealing with pain and stress. It helps treat microorganisms at the cell level. It helps the body with regeneration of organs and helps the body deal with pain and inflammation. I was introduced to this machine about 10 plus years ago, and it's been a real blessing to my life. So the OnMed biofeedback has been around, like I said, 15 plus years in Germany, and then it came to the States. So you can go ahead and check it out where you live. There's physicians and NDs and DOs who use this all around the world, and it's just a really great modality to use with whatever you're dealing with. If you want to help to maintain health, or if you're dealing with some kind of chronic infection like Lyme disease, even traumatic experiences, it helps with PTSD and insomnia. So there's a lot of variety of uses that the OnMed can be used for. So I'd highly suggest looking into it, checking out the research behind it. And this is another great modality to use in your toolkit for helping your body achieve health. Well, thank you so much for having me today. It's been a blessing. Check back, subscribe so you can check and see more videos that we're going to be having on here. Feel free to make any comments. I'll try to read through them and do the best I can. Of course, I'm not your doctor, so I can't give you any professional advice. I can make suggestions and things like that. But yeah, check out our website, check out my book on Lyme and co-infections, The Road to Recovery. A lot of great information on there too. I have both versions, the original version and also the condensed version, which is great for those just starting out and don't want to be overwhelmed. Both those are both available on my site, Healthysolutionsforall.com. Thanks for having me today. Have a blessed day. Thankful to be a part of your journey to health.